My name is Christine Nelson, and I'm a 30-year-old night shift nurse who spent 8 months paying my parents $850 every single week. My hands trembled as I canceled that final payment on my phone, watching 8 months of automatic transfers disappear with one click. But my parents didn't know I'd been documenting every word, every snub, every lie. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been treated like an ATM by your own family? For 8 straight months, my Mondays began the same way. Coffee in a chipped mug, scrubs still wrinkled from the dryer, tired eyes staring at my phone screen. At exactly 9 a.m., I'd open my banking app and send $850 to my parents. It wasn't love. It was habit. Maybe guilt. Maybe some desperate hope that if I kept giving, they'd finally see me. Not as the daughter who disappointed them, not as the mistake they wished they could erase, but as family. After 12-hour night shifts at the hospital, I'd stumble home to our small 2-bedroom apartment. Lily would already be at school, and I'd sit at our kitchen table with my laptop open, her crayon drawings taped to the wall beside the stack of bills. Every week, I'd type in those same numbers, then stare at the confirmation message blinking on the screen like a heartbeat. Payment sent. I couldn't stop myself. My mother never thanked me. My father never even mentioned it. But when their car broke down last winter, I paid the mechanic before they asked. When their power bill was overdue in March, I covered it. When they needed new appliances, groceries, insurance payments, I handled it all. It wasn't generosity. It was survival. Keeping them calm meant keeping the peace, even if that peace was built on my exhaustion. Lily didn't understand any of it, of course. She's 7 now, with her mother's stubborn chin and a smile that could light up the darkest room. She thought her grandparents lived far away, not just 30 minutes across town in their 4-bedroom house with the pool I helped pay for. "Mommy, can Nana and Grandpa come to my dance recital?" she'd ask, spinning in our tiny living room wearing her sparkly costume. I'd force a smile, swallow the truth like bitter medicine, and say, "Maybe next time, sweetheart." She'd nod, believing me. Kids always believe. I used to believe, too, that parents eventually soften, that pride fades with time, that love finds its way back through the cracks. I used to imagine them sitting at my kitchen table again, holding Lily's little hands, telling her stories about when I was her age. But every phone call with my mother reminded me how far gone we were. She spoke to me like I was an employee, not her daughter. Her voice always clipped, precise, businesslike. "Don't forget to add the groceries this week. Your father's cholesterol medication is running out. We need the car detailed for church on Sunday." Some nights, I'd hear Lily in her room talking to her dolls, giving them names. Grandma, Grandpa, Mommy. She'd make them hug and laugh and share imaginary cookies. Watching her through the doorway made my chest ache. She was building the family she wished she had, the one that should have been hers by right. So when her birthday came around last month, I went all out. I couldn't give her grandparents who cared, but I could give her the perfect party. I spent money I didn't have on streamers, balloons, a chocolate cake from the nice bakery. I even found a small bounce house secondhand and set it up in our apartment complex's courtyard. She twirled in her new mermaid dress, her hair braided with tiny shells, cheeks flushed with pure excitement. "Mommy," she whispered, tugging my sleeve as the first guests arrived. "Do you think they'll come this time?" I hesitated, my heart already breaking. "Maybe, baby, let's wait a little longer." But deep down, I already knew. The envelope I'd mailed them 3 weeks earlier sat unopened on their kitchen counter. I'd seen it through their window when I dropped off groceries. The invitation with Lily's careful handwriting, "Please come to my birthday party, I miss you. Love, Lily." Never opened. By 3 o'clock, the candles had started to melt into colorful puddles on the cake. The ice had turned the punch watery. The courtyard still smelled like sugar and sunscreen, But the laughter was fading as parents came to collect their children. Lily kept glancing toward the parking lot entrance, her fingers sticky from frosting, the hem of her mermaid dress catching the afternoon sunlight. Every few minutes, she'd ask the same question, softer each time. "Mommy, do you think they're almost here?" I smiled the way mothers do when they're breaking inside. "Maybe, sweetheart. Maybe traffic is bad." But there was no traffic. No call. No excuse. Just silence. And that empty chair I'd stupidly set up at the head of the table with a handmade name card that read, "Nana and Grandpa." I should have known better. When the last guest left and the sun began to sink low, Lily sat on the concrete steps with a cupcake in her small hands, her sparkly shoes dangling, staring at the parking lot like faith itself might drive up and park. When the sky turned orange and purple, she finally whispered, "Maybe they forgot." I knelt beside her, brushing hair from her face, feeling my throat tighten. "Maybe, baby, but we still had fun today, didn't we?" She nodded, but her eyes were wet. "Yeah, we did." That night, after tucking her into bed and watching her cry quietly into her pillow, I sat on our old couch scrolling through the photos. Lily smiling with her friends, balloons bobbing in the background, the bounce house, the cake. Every picture felt like proof that I'd tried, that I'd done everything right. Then I saw it. A text from my mother sent that morning at 8:47 a.m. Just one line. "Tell Lily happy birthday from us." That was it. No call. No visit. Not even a period at the end of the sentence. 16 characters to replace their presence in their granddaughter's life. I stared at that message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then I did something I'd been too afraid to do for 8 months. I called them. The phone rang 4 times. My father answered, his voice sharp and annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. "What is it, Christine?" "Dad, why didn't you come today?" A pause. A sigh heavy with contempt, the kind that makes you feel small even through a phone line. "We didn't feel like it." My voice came out quieter than I intended. "Dad, Lily was waiting for you. She made you a card. She—" He cut me off. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the sentence that split my world clean in half. "Your child means nothing to us." I froze. For a moment, all I could hear was the low hum of the refrigerator and the blood pounding in my ears. My body went cold before my mind could catch up. "What did you just say?" He didn't repeat it. He just hung up. I sat there with the phone still pressed to my ear, staring at the blank wall across the room. Not crying, not shouting, just frozen. Lily's drawings fluttered on the refrigerator behind me, little crayon hearts and stick figures holding hands, smiling in a world that didn't exist. But they had no idea what was coming next. It started when I was 8 years old. That's when I first understood that love in my family wasn't unconditional. It was transactional, and I'd been born on the wrong side of the ledger. I remember my elementary school spelling bee. I'd practiced for weeks, staying up late with flashcards, mouthing words in the mirror. When I won first place, I looked out into the audience, searching for my parents' faces. They weren't there. They'd left early to attend my older brother Brandon's soccer game across town. Brandon was 12, and he sat on the bench the entire game. But he was there, and I wasn't. And somehow that made all the difference. When I got home with my blue ribbon, my mother was making dinner. I held it up, beaming. "Mom, look! I won!" She glanced over her shoulder, barely pausing from chopping vegetables. "That's nice, Christine. Did you remember to put your permission slip in your backpack for the field trip?" That was it. No hug, no celebration. Just a redirect to something practical, something that required me to be useful. Brandon, on the other hand, got a party for making the soccer team. even though he never played, even though he quit halfway through the season. There were balloons, a cake from the nice bakery, and relatives who drove from 2 towns over to congratulate him. I served the punch and cleaned up afterward. Every single time, it was like that. Every achievement I earned, every effort I made. It dissolved into the background, while Brandon's smallest gestures became family celebrations. When I graduated from nursing school with honors, working full-time to pay my own tuition, my parents attended the ceremony but left before the reception. They had to get Brandon to the airport. He was going to visit an art school he was considering, his third attempt at finding a college that suited him. When Brandon dropped out of that art school 6 months later, my parents paid off his student loans, $32,000. When I mentioned I was struggling with my own loans from nursing school, my mother's response was sharp. "You chose a stable career. You'll be fine." I was fine, but I was also alone. The systematic mistreatment wasn't dramatic. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. Birthday cards that arrived a week late with generic messages. Forgetting to invite me to Christmas Eve dinner 3 years in a row. Family photos posted on Facebook that somehow never included me. 47 posts featuring Brandon over the last 5 years. 3 that included me, and only because I happened to be standing in the group shot. But I kept trying. I sent them cards on every holiday. I called every Sunday. I offered to help with yard work, house repairs, grocery shopping. I thought if I made myself indispensable, they'd eventually see my worth. Then I got pregnant with Lily. I was 22, in a brief relationship with a man named David who left the moment he saw the positive pregnancy test. I remember calling my mother from the clinic parking lot, my hands shaking, terrified but also oddly hopeful. Maybe this would change things. Maybe a grandchild would soften them. "Mom, I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant." Silence. Then, "Well, that's just perfect, Christine. Another mess for us to explain to people at church. I'm keeping the baby. I'm going to. Do not expect us to raise your mistake. You made this choice. You deal with it." She hung up. That was 5 months into my pregnancy. They didn't attend my baby shower. They didn't visit the hospital when Lily was born. They didn't meet her until she was 4 months old, and only because I drove to their house and stood on the porch until they finally let me in. My mother held Lily for exactly 90 seconds, her face pinched like she'd tasted something sour. My father didn't hold her at all. Brandon wasn't there. He was on a creativity retreat in Colorado that my parents had funded. But I had a secret they didn't know about. Someone had been watching, documenting, caring. Aunt Dorothy. My mother's younger sister, Aunt Dorothy, was everything my parents weren't. Warm, present, genuinely interested in my life. She attended Lily's birth, holding my hand through every contraction when I had no one else. She came to Lily's first birthday party, her kindergarten graduation, every dance recital. She was the grandmother Lily deserved. 4 months ago, Aunt Dorothy died suddenly. A heart attack in her sleep at 63. I was devastated. Lily was heartbroken. My parents attended the funeral but left before the reception, claiming they had prior commitments. 2 weeks after the funeral, I received a letter from her estate lawyer. Inside was a note in Dorothy's handwriting. "Christine, don't open this until you're ready to be free. When the time comes, you'll know. This is your escape hatch. Use it. You deserve so much better than what they've given you. All my love, Aunt D." I put the letter in a drawer, too exhausted and grief-stricken to process it. I had bills to pay, shifts to work, a daughter to raise. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening, 3 months after Dorothy died. My father called, rare enough that my stomach clenched with anxiety before I even answered. "Christine, we need to talk about your financial situation." My financial situation? We've been thinking. Since you have a stable job now and since we helped you so much over the years. Helped me? I couldn't help the bitter laugh. Dad, you didn't pay for my education. You didn't help with Lily. You've never. We gave you a place to grow up. We fed you, clothed you. Now we're in a difficult position. Your mother and I have decided to retire, and we need some help getting by until Social Security kicks in. My mouth went dry. What kind of help? We've calculated that $800 a week should cover our basic expenses. You're a nurse. You can afford it. $800 a week? Over $3,000 a month? Nearly $40,000 a year. Dad, I have a 7-year-old daughter and student loans and rent. Family takes care of family, Christine. Unless you don't consider us family anymore. The manipulation was so naked it took my breath away. I should have said no. I should have hung up. Instead, I heard myself say, "Let me see what I can do." The next Monday, I sent them $850. The extra 50 felt like buying insurance, like maybe this generosity would finally earn me the love I'd been chasing my whole life. For 8 months, I kept sending it. Every single Monday at 9 a.m., I picked up extra shifts. I cut out every unnecessary expense. Lily and I lived on pasta and frozen vegetables, while my parents posted photos on Facebook of their dinners at mid-range restaurants, their new outdoor furniture, their weekend trips to the mountains. I never told them about the double shifts that left me so exhausted I sometimes fell asleep at red lights. I never mentioned that Lily was wearing hand-me-down clothes while they bought a new flat-screen TV. I just kept paying, kept hoping, kept believing that this time would be different. Then came the crisis that forced my hand. 3 weeks ago, I nearly collapsed during a shift. The hospital supervisor, Dr. James Chen, found me in the supply room, sitting on the floor with my head between my knees. "Christine, when was the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" "I'm fine, just tired." "You're not fine. You've been working 6 shifts a week for months. You're going to hurt yourself or a patient. I'm cutting you back to 3 shifts. Non-negotiable." 3 shifts meant losing over half my income. It meant I couldn't sustain the payments to my parents and still keep a roof over Lily's head. That same day, Lily's school counselor called. "Ms. Nelson, I wanted to touch base about Lily. She's been drawing some concerning pictures in art class. Family portraits where she's separated from everyone else, or sometimes not included at all." The counselor's gentle voice cut through me like glass. Has there been a change in the family dynamic? Any conflict she might be internalizing? I wanted to scream. Instead, I scheduled therapy sessions I couldn't afford and held Lily tighter that night, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. The next Monday, when that automatic transfer processed, I stared at my bank balance. I had $83 left until my next paycheck in 4 days. $83 to feed my daughter, put gas in my car, and survive. That's when I finally opened Aunt Dorothy's envelope. Inside was a key, a legal document, and a handwritten letter. The key was to a safe deposit box. The document was titled Testimony of Systematic Family Abuse, Evidence and Documentation, and it was 47 pages long. Dorothy had been documenting everything, every cruel comment, every exclusion, every time my parents chose Brandon over me. She'd compiled photos, screenshots, dates, and her own witness statements. The letter was shorter. "My dearest Christine, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably at your breaking point. I watched Patricia and Gerald treat you like you were disposable for 30 years. I watched them erase your accomplishments and ignore your beautiful daughter. I couldn't stop them, but I can give you something they can never take away. Proof, resources, and the truth in writing. In the safe deposit box, you'll find $180,000 in bonds I've been saving for you. You'll also find the deed to my beach cottage. It's yours now, in your name only. Finally, you'll find legal documentation that should protect you if they ever try to claim you owe them anything. Christine, you owe them nothing. Not money, not explanations, not another second of your precious life. Family isn't supposed to cost you everything. Real love doesn't demand payment. Be free, sweetheart. You and Lily deserve the world. Go get it. All my love, Aunt Dorothy. I sat on my bedroom floor and cried for an hour. Not from sadness, from relief, from validation, from the sudden, dizzying realization that someone had seen me, truly seen me, and thought I was worth saving. But I didn't act immediately. First, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. I called my brother Brandon for the first time in 6 months. Chris, hey, is everything okay? Brandon, I need to ask you something. Are you sending Mom and Dad money? The pause told me everything. How did you know? How much? 400 a month. They said you'd stopped helping them, that they were struggling. They made it sound like you'd abandoned them, so I thought, I've been sending them $850 a week, Brandon. Every week for 8 months. What? That's over 3,000 a month? They told me. His voice cracked. They've been lying to both of us. Yeah, they have. Chris, I'm done. I'm done with their manipulation. I'm done being the golden child if it means watching them destroy you. We talked for 2 hours, comparing notes, sharing stories. Brandon had his own scars from our parents' control. He admitted the pressure to be the successful son had crushed him, that their financial support came with strings that strangled. When are you going to stop paying them? He asked finally. I thought about Lily's birthday party, the empty chair, the waiting, the hope in her eyes dying by degrees as the hours passed. Soon, I said. Very soon. I had no idea that soon would become tonight, in the most devastating way possible. The morning after that phone call, sunlight spilled across my kitchen table like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. I couldn't shake my father's voice. Your child means nothing to us. The words had carved themselves into my brain, playing on an endless loop beneath every other sound, even the quiet hum of the refrigerator. Lily was still asleep. I made coffee just to have something to hold, something warm to remind me I was still real, still here, still standing. My phone rang at 8:47 a.m., unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Ms. Nelson, this is Richard Martinez. I'm your parents' landlord. My stomach dropped. Yes? I wanted to check in. The rent payment didn't come through this month, which is very unlike you. Is everything all right? Unlike me. As if I were the tenant. As if their housing was my responsibility by some law I'd never agreed to. Mr. Martinez, that's not my responsibility anymore. Oh. He paused, confused. They told me you managed all their payments. They gave me your number as the primary contact for... They lied. My voice surprised me with its steadiness. I used to help them, but I don't anymore. They'll need to handle their own rent from now on. I see. Well, I'll need to follow up with them directly then. Thank you for clarifying. When I hung up, I felt something shift inside me, like a cord snapping. I wasn't their safety net anymore. I was just a woman drinking cold coffee in her own house, trying to figure out how to protect her daughter from people who should have protected her. At 10:03 a.m., Brandon called. Chris, Mom just called me. She's hysterical. What did she say? That you've lost your mind, that you're trying to destroy them. She said you cut them off without warning, that they're going to lose their house, that you're being vindictive and cruel. I laughed, a sharp sound that didn't feel like mine. Vindictive. I told her I'm done too. I told her I know they've been taking money from both of us and lying about it. How did she react? She hung up on me. Then Dad called back and told me I'm no longer welcome in their home until I come to my senses. Chris, I'm done. I'm completely done. Brandon, thank you. For believing me. You're my sister. I should have stood up for you years ago. After we hung up, I sat in silence, processing. For the first time in my life, I wasn't alone in this. Brandon had chosen truth over comfort, reality over the fantasy our parents had built around him. Then my phone lit up with a notification, a Facebook tag. My stomach turned before I even opened it. The video was titled, "The Truth About Our Daughter," and it was a live stream from my parents' living room, filmed just an hour earlier. My mother sat in her favorite chair, clutching a tissue like a prop in a melodrama. My father sat beside her, arms crossed, his face arranged in an expression of disappointed authority. "We've always supported Christine through everything," my mother said, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "But she's been telling people we're monsters who refuse to see our grandchild. None of that is true." My father leaned forward. "Christine has been forcing money on us for months. We've tried to tell her we don't need it, but she insists. Now she's using the fact that we accepted her help as proof that we're somehow abusive. She needs professional help." I felt my blood go cold. They were rewriting history in real time, painting themselves as victims of my generosity rather than exploiters of my guilt. Then came the moment I knew was coming, but still wasn't prepared for. My father reached off camera and lifted a printed photograph. It was Lily in her mermaid dress, smiling at the camera during her birthday party. He held it up to the lens. "This child," he said, his voice flat and cold, "does not exist to us." I closed the video. I couldn't watch anymore. Within 20 minutes, my phone was flooded with notifications, texts from distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Is this real? Are you seeing this? What's going on with your parents?" The comments under the video were a battlefield. Some people defended my parents, claiming I must have done something to deserve their anger. Others were horrified. "Who says that about a 7-year-old? This is disgusting. Those poor grandparents. Praying for healing in this family. If this is real, these people are monsters." I turned my phone off. The house felt too quiet, like even the air didn't want to move. An hour later, Brandon texted me. I turned my phone back on just long enough to read it. "Don't respond. Don't post anything. Let them choke on their own words. The truth will handle itself." I wanted to fight back, to defend myself, to explain. But Brandon was right. Sometimes silence is louder than rage. Sometimes the best strategy is to let your enemies destroy themselves. By evening, the video had spread through our small town like wildfire. I checked Facebook once and immediately regretted it. Their church friends had shared the video with prayer emoji reactions. The comments were multiplying by the minute, and the tide was starting to turn. People who knew my parents were beginning to question their story. "Wait, aren't they the ones who never talk about their granddaughter? I've seen Christine's daughter at school events. She's a sweet kid. This doesn't add up. Something feels off about this whole thing." The next morning, Richard texted me. "Saw the video. They've been served with a 30-day notice to vacate. I'm sorry it came to this." I didn't reply. Justice, for once, was efficient. That afternoon, my phone rang. My cousin Lauren, voice shaking with anger. "Chris, they're at the family reunion." I frowned. "What? They weren't invited?" "They showed up anyway. They're in the backyard right now trying to get sympathy from everyone, playing the victim card. It's disgusting." "Lauren, I can't deal with this right now. Chris, I'm not letting them get away with this. I'm not letting them lie about you in front of the whole family. You might want to check Facebook in about an hour." She hung up before I could respond. Exactly 63 minutes later, I opened Facebook. A new video was already climbing in shares. Grainy, handheld footage from someone's phone. The setting was my Uncle Robert's backyard. Picnic tables, plastic cups, the warm chaos of a family gathering. My parents stood near the center, surrounded by relatives. My mother was mid-speech, her voice pleading. No matter what Christine has told you, we love her. And that poor child, Lily. We've tried to have a relationship with her, but Christine keeps her from us. She's so confused, making up these stories about us ignoring her. It breaks our hearts. Several relatives nodded sympathetically. I saw my Uncle Thomas reach out to pat my father's shoulder. Then Lauren's voice cut through the murmur of conversation, sharp and clear. Before or after you said her kid doesn't exist? The camera pivoted toward her. She was standing at the edge of the circle, holding up her phone. She turned the volume all the way up, and from the tiny speaker came my father's unmistakable voice. Your child means nothing to us. Then, seconds later, from the Facebook video, this child does not exist to us. The backyard went silent. It was the kind of silence that feels like a physical presence, pressing down on everything. Someone's child started crying in the background. A lawnmower hummed somewhere in the distance, absurdly normal. My mother's face drained of color. My father looked like he'd been struck. Uncle Robert stood up slowly, his voice calm but firm. If that's how you treat your own granddaughter, then you don't belong here. No one argued. No one came to their defense. My parents just stood there, frozen, as the weight of their own words crashed down on them. Finally, they turned and walked toward their car. No one stopped them. No one said goodbye. The camera followed their retreat. Faces pale, shoulders hunched, eyes down. Someone off camera muttered, "Good for her." Another voice. About time somebody said something. The video ended. I watched it 3 times, then set my phone down. A laugh escaped me, quiet, shaking, coming from somewhere deep in my chest. Not cruel, not victorious, just released. The laugh of someone who'd been holding her breath for 30 years and finally, could exhale. Brandon called that evening. You saw it. I did. They humiliated themselves, he said. Finally. They did, I said softly. And I didn't have to do a single thing? Sometimes, Brandon murmured, the truth handles itself. That night, I sat beside Lily's bed while she slept, her small hand wrapped around the stuffed rabbit she'd named Hope. For the first time in months, my chest didn't ache with that constant gnawing anxiety. I listened to the faint sound of rain tapping against the window and thought of every Monday morning I'd wasted, every $850 I'd sent, every piece of myself I'd traded for love that was never for sale. I opened my laptop, not to send money, but to look at my bank account history. 8 months of payments, 34 transactions, $28,900 transferred from my account to theirs. Line after line of completed. All that money, and I'd never gotten so much as a thank you. I scrolled to the end and whispered into the quiet room, not anymore. The next morning, our small-town Facebook group lit up. Someone had edited both videos together, the live stream where they displayed Lily's photo and called her meaningless, and the reunion video where they were confronted with their own words. The compilation had been viewed over 8,000 times. The comments were merciless. Church couple exposed for disowning grandchild. Hypocrisy at its finest. You can't erase your own blood. That poor little girl deserves better. By noon, their church had quietly removed their photos from the website. Their prayer group stopped mentioning them in the bulletin. The community center where my father volunteered asked him to step down. Their world was collapsing, brick by brick, and it was all built on the foundation of their own cruelty. I didn't post anything. I didn't celebrate publicly. I simply took Lily to the park that afternoon. She drew stars on the sidewalk with colored chalk and said, "Mommy, this one's for Uncle Brandon." The air smelled like rain and chalk dust. She laughed, and the sound was so pure it hurt. When we got home, there was an envelope in the mailbox. Cream paper. My name written in elegant handwriting across the front. Inside was a short note from Aunt Margaret, my father's sister. Christine, they chose pride over love. You chose your child. That's what family is supposed to look like. Stay strong. I folded the note and slipped it into a drawer with Aunt Dorothy's letter. Some victories don't need applause. Some justice is quiet and certain and doesn't require your participation to arrive. But I knew this wasn't over. Not quite yet. There was one more revelation coming. One more piece of the puzzle that would finally, permanently close this chapter. And I was ready. 3 days after the reunion video went viral, I finally drove to the bank and opened Aunt Dorothy's safe deposit box. Lily was at school. Brandon came with me for moral support. The box was larger than I expected. Inside was a leather portfolio, a stack of bonds in watermarked paper, and a sealed envelope marked, "For legal purposes only, open with attorney present." Back at my apartment, Brandon and I sat at the kitchen table and opened the portfolio. The first page was a letter from Dorothy's estate lawyer, explaining the contents. The bonds totaled $180,000, earning modest interest, all in my name. The beach cottage deed was clipped to the back, legally transferred to Christine Marie Nelson months before Dorothy died. But it was the sealed envelope that changed everything. "Should we wait for a lawyer?" Brandon asked. "No. Let's just see what we're dealing with." Inside were 3 sets of documents. First, a forensic financial analysis that Dorothy had commissioned. She'd hired a private investigator to examine my parents' finances. They had $340,000 in investment accounts, a paid-off house worth $425,000, and my father was still working part-time as a consultant, earning $3,500 a month. They were never in financial crisis. They'd lied about everything. Second, a medical power of attorney and will that Dorothy had helped me draft years ago when Lily was born, documents I'd forgotten about. Crucially, they explicitly stated my parents had no legal claim to me or my daughter. Dorothy had protected me legally, and I'd never even known. Third, her testimony. 47 pages of documented abuse, dated entries, screenshots of Facebook posts that excluded me, copies of emails showing their demands for money, and witness statements from other family members who'd seen their treatment of me. It was evidence, compiled over years, that would stand up in any court. My hands shook as I read. Brandon's face had gone pale. "Chris, this is a legal nuclear weapon." "She was protecting me," I whispered. "All those years she was building a case, just in case I ever needed it." My phone rang. The estate lawyer, Sarah Chen. "Ms. Nelson, I've been waiting for you to open the safe deposit box. Have you reviewed the contents?" "Yes, all of it." "Good. You need to know that your parents have already tried to contest Aunt Dorothy's will. They claimed she was mentally unfit when she made these arrangements, and that they deserve a portion of her estate as next of kin." My blood ran cold. Can they do that? They tried. The probate judge dismissed their claim this morning. Dorothy's medical records, her lawyer's testimony, and the documented history of her cognitive health made their case impossible. But Ms. Nelson, there's something else. What? Your parents filed a civil suit yesterday. They're suing you for financial abuse, claiming you coerced them into accepting money they didn't want, then cut them off maliciously. They're seeking $50,000 in damages for emotional distress. I couldn't breathe. "They're suing me?" Brandon grabbed my hand across the table. Sarah's voice was calm. "They are. But they've made a critical mistake. By filing this suit, they've opened their finances to legal discovery. We can now subpoena their bank records, investment accounts, and financial history. Everything Dorothy documented? We can now use it in court. They've essentially handed us the weapon to destroy their case. What do I do?" "You let me handle it." I'll file a countersuit for defamation and harassment, and I'll include Dorothy's evidence package. Ms. Nelson, by the time this is done, they won't just lose their case, they'll owe you legal fees, and their financial lies will be part of public record. 2 weeks later, I sat in Sarah's office reviewing the legal filing. She'd done exactly what she promised. The countersuit was comprehensive, devastating, and backed by irrefutable evidence. But the real turning point came from an unexpected source. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Nelson, this is Jennifer Kim from Channel 7 News. We've been following the viral videos about your family situation. Would you be willing to speak on camera about financial abuse by family members? We're doing a segment on adult children being exploited by parents. I called Brandon immediately. The news wants to interview me. Are you going to do it? I thought about it for a long moment. About every time I'd stayed silent. Every time I'd swallowed my truth to keep the peace. Yes, I said. I think I am. The interview aired 3 days later. I sat in my living room, dressed professionally, Lily's drawings visible on the wall behind me. The reporter was gentle but direct. Christine, you sent your parents over $28,000 in 8 months. Why? Because they told me family takes care of family. They made me believe they were struggling, that they needed my help to survive. I found out later they had over $340,000 in investments and were still earning income. They didn't need my money. They wanted it. And when you stopped paying, they went on Facebook and told everyone I was the abuser. They said my daughter, their granddaughter, meant nothing to them. On camera. To the world. The reporter's face showed genuine shock. How did your daughter react? She doesn't know. She's 7. She just knows that some people don't show up, even when they promise to. I'm teaching her that we choose our family based on who loves us, not who shares our blood. The segment ended with Sarah explaining the legal concept of financial abuse, using my case as an example. Many adult children, especially daughters, are manipulated into supporting parents who are perfectly capable of supporting themselves. It's exploitation disguised as filial duty. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The video was shared over 50,000 times in 2 days. News outlets across the state picked up the story. My parents' names weren't used, but in our small town, everyone knew exactly who the story was about. Their church officially asked them to leave. The priest released a statement. We cannot in good conscience support behavior that harms vulnerable family members, especially children. Their longtime friends stopped calling. Their social circle evaporated overnight. The women my mother had met for coffee every Thursday stopped responding to her texts. Brandon sent me a screenshot of their Facebook pages. Both had been deleted entirely. They'd tried to run from the truth, but the internet is forever, and their words were archived in dozens of news articles and social media compilations. Then came the legal blow that ended everything. Sarah called me on a Tuesday afternoon. Christine, their lawyer just contacted me. They're dropping the lawsuit. What? Why? Because discovery revealed they lied to the court. They claimed poverty and emotional damage, but we pulled their financial records. The judge was not pleased. They withdrew the suit to avoid sanctions and potential criminal charges for filing a frivolous claim. So it's over? Almost. They've agreed to a settlement. They'll pay your legal fees, 80,500 pers, and they'll sign a binding agreement to never contact you or Lily again. In exchange, you won't pursue a countersuit for defamation. They're paying me to go away? Essentially, yes. And Christine? They're about to face another problem. The IRS has been notified about unreported income. Dorothy's investigators found evidence they'd been collecting cash payments for years without declaring them. They're looking at an audit and potentially significant penalties. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired and free. The settlement was finalized a week later. Brandon and I met at a coffee shop to celebrate. You did it, he said, raising his cup. You got out. We got out, I corrected. You stood with me. That mattered. So what now? I smiled. Now? I'm taking Lily to see Aunt Dorothy's cottage. Our cottage. We're going to spend a weekend by the ocean, and I'm going to teach my daughter that she's enough, exactly as she is, without having to earn anyone's love. Brandon's eyes got misty. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She reminded me what unconditional love actually looks like. That Saturday, Lily and I drove to the coast. The cottage was small, but perfect. Weathered blue paint, a porch facing the ocean, wind chimes singing in the salt air. Lily ran straight to the beach, her laughter carried away by the wind. I stood on the porch and pulled out my phone. One last thing to do. I opened my banking app and created a new automatic transfer. Every Monday at 9 a.m., $850 would move from my checking account to a college fund in Lily's name. Same amount, different destination. This time, the investment would actually pay returns. I took a photo of Lily dancing at the water's edge and posted it to Facebook with a simple caption, "Teaching my daughter that the best revenge is living well." Within an hour, it had 300 likes and dozens of comments. Aunt Margaret, Uncle Robert, Lauren, Brandon, Dr. Chen from the hospital, Emma, who'd been my friend through everything, and dozens of people I'd never met, strangers who'd followed the story and wanted me to know, you did the right thing. You're not alone. We see you. I realized then that I'd spent 30 years seeking validation from two people who would never give it, when all along I'd been surrounded by people who already saw my worth. That night, Lily and I built a fire in the cottage's stone fireplace. She curled up beside me with her favorite book, and I read to her until she fell asleep in my lap. The ocean whispered against the shore outside. The wind chimes sang their gentle song. For the first time in my entire life, I felt peace. Not the false peace bought with money and exhaustion, real peace, the kind that comes from finally being free. 1 year later, I stood in the kitchen of our new home, not the cottage, which we kept for summer weekends, but a small house in a better neighborhood closer to Lily's school. 3 bedrooms, a backyard with space for a garden, and a porch where I could drink my morning coffee without the weight of dread pressing down on my chest. The full consequences for my parents had unfolded slowly but thoroughly. Financially, the IRS audit had resulted in $47,000 in back taxes and penalties. They'd been forced to sell their house and move to a modest apartment across town. My father's consulting work dried up when word spread about the lawsuit and the viral videos. My mother's book club politely informed her they were full right now. Their retirement had become exactly what they'd falsely claimed it was, a genuine struggle. Socially, they'd become pariahs. The small-town gossip mill is merciless, and they'd fed it the most scandalous story in years. Former friends crossed the street to avoid them. Their Christmas card list dwindled from 40 families to 3. When they tried to find a new church, the pastor Googled their names and politely suggested they seek fellowship elsewhere. I knew all this not because I tracked them, but because Brandon kept me loosely informed. He'd built his own boundaries, limiting contact to once a month and only on his terms. They'd tried multiple times to use him as a bridge back to me, promising they'd changed and wanted to make amends. He'd refused, every time. They want access, not accountability, he told me. There's a difference. The last communication I'd received from them was 6 months after the settlement, an email from my mother's new address. The subject line read, "Please, just listen." I read it once. "Christine, we know we made mistakes. We've had a lot of time to think about everything that happened. We miss you. We miss Lily. We'd like to start over. If you'd be willing to meet for coffee and talk." We're ready to apologize properly and hear your side of things. We're different now. Please give us a chance. Love, Mom. I showed it to my therapist. Yes, I was in therapy now, working through 30 years of conditioning and trauma. Dr. Morrison read it carefully and then asked, "What do you notice about this message?" "It's manipulative. She says they made mistakes. Not that they abused me. She says they're ready to apologize, but doesn't actually apologize. She says they've changed, but offers no evidence. And she signs it love, which is particularly cruel. What do you want to do with it?" I thought for a long moment. Then I clicked delete and blocked the email address. "Nothing," I said. "I want to do absolutely nothing." Some apologies are too late. Some damage is permanent, and that's okay. Forgiveness isn't mandatory, and reconciliation isn't always healthy. I'd learned that cutting someone out isn't cruelty. Sometimes it's the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself. My new life felt almost surreal in its normalcy. Professionally, I'd reduced to 3 shifts a week and was taking online classes to become a nurse practitioner. Dr. Chen had become a mentor, writing recommendation letters and introducing me to colleagues. I'd even presented at a hospital conference about preventing caregiver burnout, standing in front of 50 medical professionals, telling my story, advocating for boundaries and self-care. Personally, I'd built what Aunt Dorothy used to call a chosen family. Emma was over at least twice a week, usually with wine and takeout. She'd become Lily's honorary aunt, teaching her to cook and sitting through every terrible elementary school play with genuine enthusiasm. Dr. Chen and his wife had us over for monthly dinners, treating Lily like the grandchild they'd never had. Brandon drove down from the city every other weekend, and watching him bond with Lily, teaching her to throw a baseball, helping her build elaborate Lego cities, healed something in both of us. Uncle Robert and Aunt Margaret had formally adopted us into their branch of the family. We attended their holiday gatherings now, and Lily had 3 cousins her age who actually wanted to play with her. Lauren's daughter and Lily had become inseparable best friends. Last month, Lily had a school event, a Grandparents' Day celebration. 2 years ago, this would have broken my heart. This year, Dr. Chen and his wife came, sitting in the seats marked Grandpa James and Grandma Susan. Lily introduced them to her entire class with glowing pride. Afterward, driving home, Lily said something that made me pull over because my eyes were too blurred with tears to drive safely. "Mommy, I'm glad Nana and Grandpa don't come to things." "Oh, baby, why?" "Because if they did, there wouldn't be room for Grandpa James and Grandma Susan, and I like them way better. They actually love me." Out of the mouths of babes. For Lily's 8th birthday, we had a party at the beach cottage. 20 people came. Friends from school, neighbors, our chosen family. Brandon brought his new girlfriend, who was warm and kind and didn't flinch when I mentioned our complicated family history. Emma organized games. Dr. Chen grilled burgers. Aunt Margaret brought her famous lemon cake. There were no empty chairs. No one was waiting for people who'd never show up. Every person there had chosen to be there, and you could feel the difference. The ease, the laughter, the genuine affection filling every corner of the celebration. That night, after everyone left and Lily was asleep upstairs, I sat on the porch watching the ocean. Brandon joined me, carrying 2 beers. "You did good, sis." "We did good. Both of us." "Think they'll ever try again?" "Mom and Dad?" I considered it. "Maybe, but it doesn't matter. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I'm not looking for their approval anymore. I don't need them to validate my worth. I know who I am, and I know what I deserve." "Which is?" I smiled. "Peace. Respect. Love that doesn't require payment. Family that shows up." Brandon clinked his bottle against mine. "To family that shows up." To family that shows up, I echoed. The moral lesson had crystallized over the past year, and I'd started sharing it with other women I met. Nurses dealing with family expectations, single mothers struggling with toxic parents, daughters trying to earn love from people who saw them as obligations. The lesson was simple. You cannot purchase love. You cannot earn unconditional acceptance through conditional service. Real family, true family, doesn't demand payment for their presence. They show up because they want to, because you matter to them, because love flows naturally rather than being extracted like a debt. I'd learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They let in what nourishes you and keep out what depletes you. I'd learned that saying no to the wrong people creates space for the right ones. I'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their own cruelty without trying to save them. Most importantly, I'd learned that the best revenge isn't dramatic confrontation or calculated retaliation. The best revenge is living well. It's building a life so full of genuine love and authentic connection that the people who rejected you become irrelevant. It's being so thoroughly happy that their absence doesn't leave a hole. It reveals how much space there is for people who actually deserve to be there. 6 months ago, I'd started a blog called The Daughter Who Stopped Paying. I wrote about financial abuse by family members, about breaking cycles of emotional manipulation, about building chosen families, and healing from parental rejection. It had 15,000 followers now. Every day, women wrote to me sharing their own stories, thanking me for giving voice to their experiences, asking advice on setting boundaries. I wasn't a hero. I was just someone who'd survived and decided to talk about it. Last week, I received a message through the blog from a woman named Sarah. Your story gave me the courage to stop sending my father money every month. I've been paying his rent for 3 years while I struggle to feed my own kids. You helped me see it's not love, it's exploitation. Thank you for being brave enough to say it out loud. That message was worth more than any reconciliation with my parents ever could be. This morning, Lily came into the kitchen while I was making breakfast. She's 8 now, taller, more confident, with a smile that lights up every room she enters. Mommy, I need to make a family tree for school. My heart clenched for just a moment, old anxiety rising. Okay, what do you need? I want to put you at the top, obviously, and then me. And then, can I put Uncle Brandon and Aunt Emma and Grandpa James and Grandma Susan and all the cousins? Baby, you can put whoever you want on your family tree. Good, because that's my family, the people who love us. I knelt down and hugged her tight. That's exactly right, sweetheart. That's exactly what family means. As I watched her work on her project at the kitchen table, carefully drawing branches and writing names in her careful second-grade handwriting, I realized something profound. I'd broken the cycle. Lily would never grow up feeling invisible. She would never question whether she was loved. She would never send money to people who treated her like an obligation. She would know, deep in her bones, that love is freely given or it isn't love at all. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Chen. Christine, there's a nurse practitioner opening in pediatrics. Better hours, better pay. Want me to send you the application? I looked around my kitchen. The fridge covered in Lily's artwork. The coffee maker I'd finally bought after years of using the cheapest one at the store. The window overlooking a yard where Lily played with neighborhood children who adored her. I looked at my daughter, humming while she drew her family tree, secure and happy, and completely unaware of the storms I'd weathered to get her here. I texted back, yes, definitely yes. 1 year ago, I'd been sending $850 every Monday to people who saw me as a transaction. Today, That money sat in Lily's college fund, growing interest, investing in a future built on real love instead of false obligation. 1 year ago, I'd been breaking. Today, I was whole. The difference wasn't what I'd gained. It was what I'd finally been willing to lose: the fantasy of unconditional parental love, the hope of their approval, the weight of guilt I'd carried since childhood. I'd lost my biological parents, but I'd found my real family. I'd lost my innocence about what blood relations owe each other, but I'd gained clarity about what I deserve. I chose freedom. I chose my child. I chose peace. And that choice, quiet and steady and final, was the loudest revenge I could ever give. If you've ever had to walk away to protect your peace, you're not alone. Drop A in the comments if this story resonated with you. And if you've chosen your healing over toxic family ties, I see you, and I'm proud of you. Subscribe to hear more stories about finding family in unexpected places, because sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's simply living well.